cause. And so she manifested the likes of Dr. Wayne Dyer. One day, you know, when she was standing in a bookstore, and we're cutting the story short, of course. You will receive details of her life later on. But, for saving time right now, she met Dr. Wayne Dyer in a metaphysical bookstore, shared with him the journey that she was on. Keep in mind, this was only 6 months after leaving her job. Dr. Wayne Dyer invited the Wise One to speak at his seminar in Toronto. That was in the year 2003. Again, 6 months after leaving work, the Wise One realized she manifested Wayne Dyer in her life. And when she found herself the next day standing on stage next to him, speaking about her journey and how she came to meet him, and discovered that 3/4 of the audience was to tears at the end of her little 15 minutes of fame, she realized in that moment that she could do anything. By the way, that little speech she did was actually recorded, and you probably can get a copy, but we do not wish to give out that information unless we find out that the copy of that CD is still available. And so we will come back to do other videos, and when we do, we will have information for you that would be helpful. So, 6 months after leaving work, she manifested Dr. Wayne Dyer, had a wonderful experience, and kept going. 2 weeks after meeting Dr. Wayne Dyer, the Wise One was still on a high because she realized she can create anything. And so, again, to cut the story short, Wise One was guided to a bookstore and picked up a book that was written by Doreen Virtue. And it was a book about the crystal children, because Wise One's got children and they're quite psychic, you know. And so she thought it would be good to pick it up. Wise One picked up this book, headed home, and was guided by her angels to check her mailbox. And when she did, there was a lovely envelope in there. And when she opened it, and by the way, the address was from Doreen Virtue, she opened this manila envelope, and inside the envelope was a letter thanking her for her contribution. And she thought, contribution to what? And so when she stuck her hand in the envelope and pulled out the book, to her amazement, the book that was in the envelope was the very book she had bought 10 minutes prior at the bookstore. She purchased this book not realizing that Doreen Virtue had included her story about her, at the time, 5-year-old telepathic son, because Doreen had put a call out there for parents to send emails regarding their spirited children, because she was going to be publishing this little book. And so Wise One had sent an email to Doreen probably a year prior and totally forgot about it. And so, 2 weeks after standing on stage with Dr. Wayne Dyer, there she was, her name and her child published in a book by the woman who taught her how to communicate with angels. And you also must understand, at this time, Wise One did not meet Doreen Virtue yet. She did, however, get to meet her in person, but that was after she was added in the book. And so when she got to meet her, she thanked Doreen for her teachings, you see. And Doreen remembered who she was, because the Wise One has a pretty unique first name, and we will not mention the Wise One's name right now, because this video message is not about the Wise One. This video message is about all of you. And so, Wise One continued on this journey because she couldn't deny the miracles that were happening in her life. And eventually, she began receiving messages from Spirit. When Wise One got somewhere in the intermediate level on this path, she realized that she needed more guidance. And so everywhere she turned, The door was slammed in her face. Why? Because those of you who were able to teach her were not willing to teach her, because you could see that she was very powerful, and so you didn't want her to rise above where you were, and so you turned her away. Some of you turned her away because she didn't have money to pay for your teachings, and was quite appalled at the fact that no one was even willing to offer discounts. And so she would cry to God and say, I think it's quite insane that no one is willing to give knowledge and wisdom and negotiate with sharing that information unless it is for a cost or fee. And so we came to Wise One and said, you do not need a physical teacher, because you have one, and that teacher is you. Let us help you find that teacher within. You need no one to take you on this path except you. You do not need to find a guru. Become your own. So everything that Wise One knows up until now, she learned from Spirit itself. And then, about a year ago, started receiving teachings directly from the Christ. And here she is. Here she is, answering the call that was given to her. Do you realize that by sitting here and speaking of these things, she's putting herself in a position to be attacked by some of you, and she cares not about it? Do you know why? Because she honestly believes and knows that whatever obstacle will be presented to her, the hands of God will be there to remove it, as it was for Moses, as it was for Abraham, as it was for the Christ. And if all of you believe, and those of you who will believe, the hands of God will be there to back you up as well. Walking this path back to love requires you to return to your innocence. Return to your childlike self. Understand clearly you have a Father who will not let you fall. And even when it seems like you fall, you're always going to have a cushion under your rear end. Before you can open up to your sensitivities, you all have to learn to recondition your mind by developing this new system of thought that we are talking about. We've also come to add to this system of thought